Hi everyone, Liam Rossinia here, and this is what losing to Arsenal in a Carabao Cup semi-final taught me about B2B sales. This is the ArsenalVision post-match podcast, and it's me, Phil Costa, taking some inspiration from LinkedIn Liam in the hosting chair, but that's not important. What's important is that Arsenal have a date booked for Wembley Stadium on March 22nd after beating Chelsea to reach a major final for the first time since August 2020. That's the men's team, obviously not the women's team. That's more than 2,000 days ago, where we also beat Chelsea to win the FA Cup. So not a bad omen to take into this final, considering how miserable they made my childhood and early teenage years, starting with Wayne Bridge scoring at Highbury, which made me cry, stretching all the way to the Europa League final in Baku. I'm definitely not taking for granted how good our recent record is against them, because we're unbeaten in our last 10 games, and the team Arteta has beaten the most during his 6 years in charge. So if that doesn't warm you up like a nice glass of scotch, then you're in the wrong place. Joining me for today's main pod episode, I've got two gentlemen who never need an excuse to lay into Chelsea. And one of those men is Clive Palmer. Hello, Clive.
Hello, hello.
And we've also got Tim Stillman. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
Tim, have you managed to dry off yet? It just seems like every day for the last 2 months it's been raining in London. I think there's more to come on Saturday as well, so get your waterproofs ready.
There's no point in drying off at the moment. You've just got to roll with it. All of my shoes are wet constantly, so are my socks. Like there's no value in dryness at the moment, to be honest.
Yeah, they should install those kind of dryers that they have at theme parks at the Emirates after you've gone on the log flume to just go and stand in there. I never really get nervous about conditions because, you know, it's a game of football and there's two teams playing with the same conditions. But I'm always reminded of that Ty clip when he's talking about the weather and, you know, it's been raining. It's been raining for both teams. But I think, yeah, most of it was handled pretty well in the conditions, I would say, although the pitch looking slightly worse for wear, which we can touch on towards the end. But before we get into the game, let's talk about the lineup, because there were 3 changes from the team that beat Leeds at Ellen Road on Saturday, with Kepa, Eberechi Eze and Gabriel Martinelli all coming in at the expense of David Raya, Kai Havertz and Leandro Trossard, which was still a strong team by all accounts, although the same sort of questions lingered about this specific front three and whether their profiles are well suited to each other. I was also quite surprised at what Chelsea did with their lineup too, because they haven't really used a back three under Liam Rossinia. But once I saw it, their game plan and what they wanted to do became very clear, with the tie still evenly poised. It ended up being a very compact, organised mid-block, with their exit plan very clear. They were looking for Joao Pedro, Liam Delap, who would ideally hold the ball up and bring others into play in transition. So, Clive, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts on the lineup, and did you think they were the right calls based on the game that was on offer, or would you have gone for a more balanced front three with either Jesus as the centre forward or one runner, one technician outside of Gyökeres?
Why does everyone keep asking about lineup questions? I think
it's my duty. I have to do it.
What I can glean from this lineup was maybe that we expected something slightly different, that they would come on to us. And so we had our quick lineup, shall we say. You know, people that can move and transition in behind, in the front three regard. And then we had our fullbacks, I would say our best one-on-one defensive fullbacks in place, or potentially how Chelsea attack wide areas. And so the rest of it just makes sense to me. And I'm glad we stayed with Kepa, because he needs to feel part of this as well. So, and I'm thinking, well, mate, you cost us in that first leg. You better be on your toes in the second leg. So that's where my head was going there. So I was fine with it. But what really was interesting was it wasn't a counter-attacking game for Arsenal. It became a game where they tried to block the middle and we tried to seduce us into risky central passes so they could turn around and transition on us. And Arsenal, with their newfound wisdom and maturity, decided to say, we're not going to play forward passes. We're going to play back here. And I sit North Bank end. So first half, I could see all the patterns of build-up, deep build-up, going coming back to the goalkeeper, out the other side. And it was actually very accurate and quite good, considering the pitch was a little bit lumpy. He was really crisp, and considering the last time I sat there and watching a mistake against Manchester United, I was a bit edgy. but we did really, really well in that regard. So what I found really interesting, this is something I'm going to talk about a bit later, is how we adapted to the game that was in front of us and played it, and just played it because that was the right thing to do. And I used the word maturity once already, and I use it again. I'm not sure we'd have done that 2-3 years ago. I think we'd have tried to play the game people expected from us and then maybe fall into their trap. And then the domino effect starts of recovery and how that impacts us. So I was really impressed with that maturity and discipline that we took.
Tim, just to you quickly, without Saka and Ødegaard, we were a little bit short on technical quality and on a difficult pitch. I think we saw that on occasion, although, largely we did fine. Would you have done anything different, or were you quite happy to kind of see who we had on the pitch and just let them figure it out?
Yeah, I haven't liked that front three every time we've played it. And I can't really spot a theme, to be honest. When we played it against Bournemouth, I was a bit like, okay, Bournemouth, they press a lot. They push you quite high. They play into areas. They leave a bit of space in behind. But then we did it away at Forest, and it's like, right, Forest don't do any of those things.
Different game. Yeah.
Yeah, and then to Clive's point, like, who knows what we were expecting here? Maybe we were expecting to be able to counter-attack a bit more, but you can't counter-attack if the other team don't attack. That's how the syntax of that works, really. But I think the technical level is too low, and particularly when you kind of don't have Ødegaard behind it as well. I do also think, we've potentially found something in terms of having a bigger presence next to Gyökeres, being that Merino or Havertz, and obviously one of those guys we don't have anymore, and the other one we can't play that often. So I think that's a real shame, because I think we might have found something there that we probably can't use all the time. So I always felt that Eze was likely to get lost in the weeds of this game because there's not enough stickability of the ball. So I didn't massively like that front three. I kind of think I'd have dropped a Trossard or a Jesus in there somewhere just to give it a bit of a technical counterbalance.
I mean, talking about the game itself, honestly, it felt like time slowed down watching that first half. Obviously, Arsenal had the 1-goal lead and the onus was on Chelsea to attack to get themselves back in the tie. But they went for a more conservative approach, which I understood. They were looking to absorb any pressure and then catch us in transition. And to be fair, João Pedro did a decent job of holding the ball up and they played through us a couple of times, but it never really amounted to anything serious in terms of chances or opportunities. And, without Arsenal doing anything wrong, there were moments where I maybe thought we could have been braver or quicker in possession once we broke through the lines. And I was surprised that we didn't test them a little bit more over the top, pushing them back towards their own goal, because that looked like an obvious way in for us, looking to exploit the running power of Martinelli, Madueke, and even Gyökeres in behind. But beyond one shot from Hincapie for us and one Enzo Fernandez shot for them, neither goalkeeper was really tested, although I did enjoy the first half being so boring that everyone had to pretend that Chelsea did something new and innovative with their corner tactic, even though some melt on a podcast said it 2 years ago and teams tried it back then. Breaking news, it doesn't work, guys. I was watching the replay this morning, and it took 2 of their players out of the box and only 1 of ours, which was Zubimendi. So I'm not sure what they were trying to achieve with that, other than putting themselves in a numerical disadvantage. But anyway, Clive...
Chat GPT is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a wonderful thing, but I think that's probably what LinkedIn Liam was using there.
Literally. I mean, Clive, sometimes 2 evenly matched teams cancel each other out and it can be an absorbing tactical battle. This was not one of those occasions, but you've referenced what it was like to watch in the stands. What was your feeling about the game going into halftime goalless? Was there anything you weren't sure about? Was there something you were happy about? Tell me about your experience watching that.
Yeah, so obviously it's 1 goal, right? So you always think the worst thing's going to happen. And it's going to hit off somebody a shot and it's going to go in. So 1 goal never feels comfortable. And so you start to have regrets about the first leg. Then you have to look at the game they were trying to play. And I could see they were trying to make us take risks. So what was Liam trying to do, right? So was he trying to play Arsenal? Or was he trying to attack our psychology and test our mental strength? And I think he was the latter. I think he was thinking, you know what? I've read some stuff on Arsenal's crowd, being a bit edgy. I've listened to Mikel Arteta's press conferences. I'm going to do things to unsettle them. You know, I'm going to unsettle them and make them get nervous, because when it comes to pure football, I think most people, even our most mortal enemies, think we're the best team. So you need to unsettle them in different ways and test their scars from previous years. And I think he went for that. As soon as I saw the team and I heard a few people chatting in the pub saying back 5 for Chelsea, I'm thinking, okay, mate, you want to drag us into deep waters. How you get there doesn't really matter. And so it was a non-event in the first part of the game to drag us into deep waters where you get more nervous. But I thought where Arsenal were really smart is I don't think we exerted any energy in the first half. We said, we can see what you're doing. We're just going to play nice and cool. Mm-hmm. So the fan in me is saying, mate, will you just kick it long? You know, that's what I was thinking, because we had our runners and I could see them making little runs. And I could see them sort of being free and then coming back, and then the person on the ball putting his hand up and say, sorry, I missed you. I'm thinking, mate, just kick it. And as soon as we kicked it forward, he went to Martinelli. Remember the one that bounced off the ground and then he didn't quite bring it forward with his body, swiveled and turned. I'm thinking, there you go. That's what we should be doing. And I was right. I'm a tactical genius. So and then after that, after half-time, we went longer a lot more. You can tell what the half-time talk was. Yeah, it's time to play in your half now. Because the thing about Chelsea before the game is we all know they've got lots of talent. They've got lots of young players. They change people off the bench. We know all about them. But they're not great in defence. They concede goals, they concede chances, and we were playing everywhere but there. So the fan in me was thinking, just get the ball there, because they're crap. If Chalobah's holding you together, you've got a problem. So that's the only frustration I had, really. The rest of it, I actually think, we've learned things for this team. Remember the Everton game, Tim, when we were doing quite similar. We were trying to play, but not overplay, to not create an energy in the ground, not create a typical Liverpool basketball game where the crowd get up, big collisions, and the whole atmosphere changes. We sort of did that at home. We didn't want to give them any sort of encouragement. And so there's a slight frustration in me with that. But that's just natural. You just want a second goal. Let's be honest, I'll be happy at 5-0, then I'll relax. So want a second goal. When it didn't come, you sort of think, okay, be mature about it as a watching fan. And I did feel, for sure, the fans in the ground were way more mature about how we were playing than we were against Wolves and Liverpool. I don't know what, it was different. It just felt different. It was just different. You could just tell there was a tension there, a natural tension when we won goal up, but nothing more than that. It wasn't a tension of 3 years worth of scars. So, yeah. So it was quite good to feel. It was a very good night. And I'll come on to the ending. I'm sure we'll get there later.
I mean, I think if you compare it to those other games you mentioned, the Wolves one and the Liverpool one, there might have been more of an onus on Arsenal to take the game to the opposition, whereas yesterday the onus, or Tuesday, was the other way around. Chelsea had to come out and score, so we were quite happy, quite comfortable. And I think even with the nerves and the anxiety and the desperation to win, there's a confidence in the floor of this Arsenal team. Defensively, people don't worry about us. Maybe there have been a few hiccups and a few bumps recently, but in general, we know that everyone's very switched on. We can trust ourselves to head missiles out of the box. The wingers are going to track back. So I think that played into a lot of the serenity. I mean, Tim, did you think Arsenal could have done a bit more or anything different to take the game to Chelsea, or did they simply just play the game that was on offer?
I think they did play the game that's on offer. And obviously that's that's inherent with risk. Clive, you mentioned the Everton game. There's also the Fulham game, Fulham away game in October, quite similar, where it was 1-0 and it always looked like it was going to finish 1-0, but you're only one deflected shot away from being an idiot in that respect. So that kind of retained some tension. But I think one of the things I really think, and I think about this quite a lot, and I will bring this back to the point, I think like our, MVP, as it were, is the coach, because we don't have that elite goal scoring talent in our team that digs you out, that digs out your average performance or elevates your average performance, who gets a goal out of nothing. I do feel like Arsenal is a team that has to be quite micromanaged. And I think Arteta kind of has to put so much energy into every detail, because that's the kind of team we are. We don't have many guys who'll smash one in from 30 yards or dribble around 3 players and score. And so a lot of the games feel very designed. And this was another one that's like every kind of kick, it felt like kind of choreographed a little bit to, and like I think Arteta takes the mood of games very seriously. He takes the atmosphere of games very seriously. I think he deeply understands and respects those things as intangible dynamics in a game that need to be taken into account. So I feel like this was another one of our quote unquote mood management performances in that respect. And I understand that. If we had like Mo Salah, for example, or someone like that, I probably would be slightly less tolerant of it. And I think also, you know, in that respect, we're talking about mood music. Well, I started talking about it anyway, but like mood music, background, ambience, whatever you want to call it. I think the fact this wasn't a league game played into what Clive describes about people not being as tetchy. And we had a 1-goal lead anyway. If this had been a Premier League game, I think it would have been very different. It's obviously a different crowd as well for a League Cup game. The other thing I think that worked nicely for us, they've installed rail seating into the clock end upper. And the reason they've done that is to better manage the placement of away fans for expanded allocations. So when we played Man United last year, Arteta did not like that the Man U fans felt like they took half the stadium because they took like half the lower tier, basically, and they're all behind him. And it felt like when we were attacking that end, it felt like we were at Old Trafford, or when they were attacking that end, it felt like Old Trafford. This time they put the rail seating in because the council has issues around people standing, so Arsenal have installed rail seating. That split the Chelsea fans up, and that has an impact on the atmosphere as well. That actually worked quite nicely for us. Yeah. So I think a lot of this was about mood management as much as anything. And I do get it. And to your point, I think that is something we can do. And it does feel like we lean into our strengths a little bit in that respect. So were there other things we could do? Possibly, probably, to be honest. But I do also feel like sometimes Arsenal have to work so hard to score a goal. I've spoken recently about how often Arsenal concede after they score, or have done in the last month, and it really feels like, because scoring a goal is such a big, you know, breath out moment that we kind of momentarily lose our discipline. When Arsenal are 0-0 or 1-0 or holding a 1-goal lead like this, I feel like they focus a little bit more. And I think a lot of it was about almost the psychological management of the game, as well as the fact that I think Chelsea probably did surprise us a little bit, and we did have to work it out on the fly.
Yeah, I mean, go on, Clive, you want to jump in there quickly?
I thought it was brilliant from Tim, and that last line, work it out on the fly. So Tim speaking about Arteta being the MVP, he totally manages everything about every aspect of the ground, the tunnel, the fireworks, everything has come from him. And those Newcastle Manchester United games, Tim, they dominated the stadium, didn't they? And in this game, I didn't even see the Chelsea fans in the upper tier. I couldn't see them from my end. And you could hear a noise, but they didn't dominate the stadium in the same way. So that definitely had an impact. That last line about the games and doing the right thing, I think the number one trick of this Arsenal team is we can play the game that's in front of us. And it's about, I heard something from a coach, Sean McVay actually, is the LA Rams coach, who's in the Kroenke umbrella sort of thing. And he spoke about coaching for capability and capacity. Capability is like any coach. You tell someone what to do, you give them the environment, tell them what to do, we do this, this is our pattern, blah, blah, blah. But when you coach for capacity, what you're really saying is, I'm coaching you to manage change. And the scenario analogy that he used, he's got 20 soldiers getting into a tank, and then when they get to the battle site, 10 get out one side, 10 get out the other side. And they train that. What happens when you get to the battle site and you're getting gunfire from one side, and you've now got to get 20 people getting out on the same side? What happens then? How do you coach that? And I extrapolated that to Arsenal. I said to myself, this is what Arsenal do. When you turn up and you think Chelsea are going to attack you, and suddenly they go back 5, we're going to sit here and wait for you to make a mistake. What do? Do you try to attack them? Do you make a mistake and they score? Or do you say, no, we're going to play here because the game has changed? And this is our thing. And maybe it's because what Tim said, we haven't got this superstars that just stick one top corner, you muddle up, and you start from there. This is our thing. To play, we can play any game in any phase, and we treat it with one utmost respect. And people are annoyed by this, and it's starting to come out. The Daniel Farker post-Leeds interviews telling you, well, we tried this, we tried that, we tried this, we tried, and they adapted. Speed of adaptation. You know, we all watch games, and Phil, you watch games, you study players. There are many games within a game, and sometimes we don't always see those changes, but we do as a club, as a coaches, as players, and we adapt to it. And I just think this is where the modern game is going. It's not 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1. It's multiple changes of shape, multiple changes of approaches in different phases, and who can adapt fastest to what's there. And I think the manager has coached his players for capacity to manage change. And I think this is the future. And people need to get comfortable that he's there. And when he gets his cherry on top strikers, football world's in a bit of trouble, honestly, because then he won't have to be as good because someone may stick one in top corner for him, you know. And at the moment, that cherry on top striker, maybe it's Nicholas Jova, because that's the guy. That's our until we get him. Do you see what I mean? That's the guy that's doing that bit of work for us.
I can't wait for you to say that on the overlap. Yeah.
Brentford, who I feel like we very much followed their slipstream on the set pieces thing. They've literally appointed their set piece coach as head coach. So what I'm saying is that when we retain the title, it will be Nicholas Jova, who is the spiritual successor.
I mean, there's a very clear difference in how we are viewed within the game and how the average fan views Arsenal. And there's a level of respect to what we do and how we go about things. I think even within games, there are very clear quarters happening now. It's not just two halves. There are four quarters because of the schedule. We need to conserve energy in some moments and go in other moments. We need to manage a squad and players who bring different qualities at certain times. So we really do a good job of splitting everything up and focusing on the smaller details, which end up making the collective stronger. And I think at halftime, it was more or less job done. Chelsea didn't really lay a finger on us. We were managing things really well. And nothing really changed in the second half. But their plan, again, was clear. Continue keeping things tight for the next 10, 15 minutes. Bring on Cole Palmer, bring on Esteval, with half an hour to play and see what they could do against this defense. You know, the Mavericks, the guys who can create something from nothing. Those changes obviously moved them to a more traditional back four as well, with Cucurella dropping back into the back line. Again, didn't really make a difference because even though the stats are quite emphatic in their favour, they had 15 shots to our 5, I think. Only 2 of those were on target. And there was one moment, maybe that late free kick, where I felt danger of any kind because I thought, oh God, Enzo's going to put one into the top corner or Cole Palmer's going to squeeze one in somehow. But I never felt that Chelsea were threatening or putting us under any kind of stress. And we made our changes too. We sort of waited for Chelsea to make theirs, and then we made ours. We got Kai Havertz on the pitch. We put Leandro Trossard on the pitch, and that just gave us a second wind of energy to close the game out, really. I mean, in fact, we had the best chance with that Gabriel header, which Zubimendi did really well to dink to the back post, but it smashed straight into the face of Cucurella, which was quite amusing. There was definitely a bit of needle between him and some of our boys down that right-hand side. I mean, I don't know how Timber wasn't booked for pulling him back. There were shades of Ben White with that little movement, and Madueke went really hard on him as well by the touchline.
Payback for Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's a gobby little rat. I don't care if they go in on him sometimes. But you know, as we get towards the end of the game, there are natural nerves that set in. We sit back a little bit more. Chelsea go long. First of all, I don't know where the officials found 6 minutes from or why he felt the need to play nearly 2 minutes more. But it did facilitate our goal with Trossard playing Rice down the left. I love the little passage of play beforehand as well, because Kepa claims the ball. Saliba's turning to the fans. He's geeing them all up. Everyone's thinking, right, as soon as Kepa boots this down, it's full time. Kepa boots the ball down. Chelsea win the header. Where's the referee? Where's the referee's whistle? It comes back again. It drops to Cucurella. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, like, where is this extra time coming from? Thankfully, Hincapie is there. He heads it to Trossard. Trossard plays Rice through. Rice with a lovely ball across the Havertz. He's in acres of space. He takes the goal beautifully around Sanchez for an easy tap in, and that's the game. Cue the celebrations. The celebration police are on red alert. And I'm glad we got that moment because I think it added something special to the night. Obviously, 0-0 would have been perfectly fine and we're through. But having that crescendo at the end really gave the result and the tie something special. And Clive, there will always be off days. But more often than not, this team has an unbelievable defensive floor. And when you've got Saliba alongside Gabriel with Rice just in front, Hincapie to the left, who we can talk about a bit later on, it's a long day for anyone trying to break that down because they're so sharp, so committed. And I think we could see at the end, despite Chelsea bringing on their big boys, they ran out of ideas. So obviously there were some natural nerves in the stadium at that point towards the end. But did you ever really feel like Chelsea were going to pick the lock or find a way through? I didn't. And I'm watching from the TV.
Yeah, I think in hindsight, from looking at the game differently, we kept our fullbacks deep and quite tight to our two centre-backs. And I did feel, I'll be honest with you, I felt they were good defenders, which we all know. But I thought they were really good on the ball. And that's the impression I got. I thought their passing was good. When to step out was good. I think Saliba made one. I talked to Adrian Clark about it yesterday. He made one sort of underlap run, which led to Madueke playing the ball inside. They got turned over and they got the Enzo shot, right? That was the only time where I felt we got a bit ambitious, stupidly in our own half. But I thought they were really good on the ball. But you could see that everyone was switched on. And that's the thing. Everyone was switched on to this game. It had a different feeling to it. You know, I looked around me where I sit and my normal season ticket holder people were all in place, you know, and it felt like a big game, a big moment. And the team looked switched on. You know, everybody looked on it. And that was really important to me. I felt it was a definite psychological challenge for us. Stephen and Gabriel, I immediately walk away from the stadium thinking, okay, we need to rotate for the weekend. How can we share the games so they are in place when it really, really matters? Because if they're in place in the biggest games of the season, we could do all right. Let's be honest, we could do all right. They're both getting better, aren't they? They're both getting better for me on the ball. Saliba's brilliant at carrying. But also Gabriel's distribution, he's getting diagonals into his game now a little bit. And he's starting to take more sort of distribution responsibility as he needs to, because if you are going to stop Arsenal, you would try to block our right side, wouldn't you? Saliba getting out to Saka, you want to stop that little connection. So you want to let Gabriel have it. So it's very important that he uses it appropriately because otherwise we're going to get stopped. You know, if you're playing Manchester United right now, you want to stand on Martinez. Don't stand on Maguire. Stand on Martinez. As soon as people work that out, let's see how Manchester United results go. So if your other player can move it, it's really important. So he's done. I was looking at him on the ball. I think defensively off the ball. We're sort of, let's say, used to it. But yeah, well done, lads. We expect that from you. But you was on it today. But I thought he tested them on the ball. So yeah, really, really good. Really, really good.
Tim, where do you stand on the Chelsea game plan? Because this narrative dominated a lot of the analysis, because I don't think there was a huge amount wrong with what they tried to do. Mm-hmm. Only the execution was poor because they didn't really lay a finger on us. And I felt that even when they did make the change to bring on their creative weapons, their big boys, they never really changed how they played. It was just kind of give it to Cole Palmer and see if he can do something, which doesn't really help. And I had the ITV coverage on, which was Lee Dixon being the most miserable man alive. I was quite fortunate not to have Gary Neville in my ears because I tried to limit that as much as possible. But there was a lot of praise, and I'm not going to say negativity towards Arsenal, but there were a few phrases like they've hung on, Arsenal are getting nervous, the stadium's nervous. And I never understood any of it because we didn't look anything apart from in control throughout this 90 minutes. And I know some people can always go overboard when it comes to criticism of the opposition, but I didn't think there was a huge amount wrong with what Chelsea tried to do. I just thought their execution was terrible, a bit like Rafinha trying to control that ball on the touchline. You know, it didn't go well at all. Where do you stand on it? Did you want them or expect them to come out a little bit more and try to be the one that were laying the punches on us, testing our chins a little bit? Or did you think they played it right, trying to wait us out, seeing how we reacted, and then, half an hour is still a long time in football to sort of get a goal at the end there and try that way.
Yeah, so obviously, like a lot of the conversation is around this is people being exposed to the commentary, basically, because you are literally getting a running commentary on it, and a lot of it's like predetermined narrative type stuff, which obviously
Gary Neville,
which obviously you don't get in the stadium. So I recognised what Chelsea were doing, but I didn't have someone talking to me every 2 minutes about it and why it's brilliant and we're rubbish and all of that. So I probably come at it from a, like I don't want to say purer place. That's not the word I'm looking for, but like a slightly less angry place. If I'd been listening to that commentary, I would have been very, very annoyed. So I understand people coming at it from that angle. I didn't expect Chelsea to do that. No. I did understand it, though. I don't like. Ultimately, this is what it boils down to. We are a better team than they are. They know that. We know that. I think that's very uncontroversial, actually. And what do slightly inferior teams do when they come to, when they come to grounds like the Emirates? They try and keep things tight and hope they can nick it. Like I don't think that's a terrible tactic. I think the way they tried to do it didn't make a lot of sense to me because they didn't really play with any counter-attacking threat. So playing Liam Delap on the right wing, up against Hincapie as well.
Doing his best Nicholas Bentner impression.
And I know we'll talk about Hincapie a little bit, but I thought I played into his hands very nicely. Like, to me, I know like Gittins is injured, isn't he? Like, tore his hamstring.
Yeah.
They lost Pedro Neto, so maybe they're a little bit constrained by choice. Although, like, I tend to think of Chelsea as like a squad of like 25 small, quick wingers, but I guess Mudrik's not available. They just let Raheem Sterling go. They should have played him, but it didn't feel like, to me, if you're going to do that, you need pace on the break, and they didn't have that. They almost should have had our front three, actually. To be honest, they should have had like Martinelli.
Well, they did have one of them,
or Madueke. Actually, might have been quite good for that game plan. Like it was. So I didn't get that part of it. I don't think it was an absolutely terrible tactic. And look at what happened in the first leg. Like, it was only 3-2. That was a 4-1 game. Like, we absolutely took them apart in that game. And in that game, they didn't have Reece James as well. They decided not to start Cole Palmer in this one. I think that's one to keep an eye on because Rossinia's kind of changed their midfield because he doesn't invert his fullbacks. He started playing Andre Santos at the base so that Caicedo's kind of lack of ball distribution isn't as big, and they just let Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo run around smashing into people. That means I think Cole Palmer's not going to be able to play number 10 for them anymore, and he's not going to get that you do whatever the hell you like kind of role that he got from Maresca. I think they're going to want to play him off the right.
Until they sell him in the summer to Manchester United.
Well, indeed. I could see that. I really could see that. So yeah, I could see what they were trying to do, and they don't have very good defenders. So if they want to, focus on keeping it tight, they do have to play 5 of them. They don't have any Gabriels and Salivas like locking that back door. So I understood the intention of it. Didn't think it was a terrible idea, but I don't really think they had the personnel to do it.
I mean, I wanted to touch on the goal quickly as well, because this is a big moment and I'm really trying to manage my expectations when it comes to Kai Havertz, because he's been out a long time and very rarely does someone come straight back into the highest level of football after 2 surgeries and look their best, right? Especially when you're chasing 4 different competitions. So I'll be a bit more measured and say that my mental and physical well-being is entirely in his hands between now and the end of the season, because I'm crossing everything for this man to stay fit. I mean, to be fair, I think Gyökeres has improved and we know Jesus can contribute, but I still think there's a huge gap between what they offer and what Havertz offers. And regardless of how frustrated you get when he doesn't finish chances, his quality and flexibility gives the team an edge. It gives the team so much. And I love how he took his goal, because that screamed someone wanting to make an impact or make up for lost time. Sorry, Gabby. I know you're alongside me, but there's no chance I'm passing to you here. I'm going around the keeper, easy as you like, and shithousing my former club while I'm at it. Go on, Tim.
I was just going to say, I really recommend Art de Roche. He's written a really good piece about this in The Athletic today, like describing Havertz as a floater and how valuable that is to
Thomas
lay
Muller.
off and play. Yeah. And I kind of think
rounder.
Marino does that as well, and I think that's going to be one of the reasons he's such a big loss.
Yeah, and Clive, things didn't look great initially when he came back because he was in matchday squads, then he was left out, then there was talk of setbacks, but he's featured in each of the last 3 games. He's scored twice, assisted 1, and more importantly, looks fit enough to be a contender to start. So how do you think him coming back impacts our plans moving forward, as careful as we have to be with him, obviously?
It's simple. He's basically the most tactically important player we have in the team. And when it comes to tactical flexibility, him and the goalkeeper is always the 2 I always pick, because the goalkeeper gives us something that we didn't have before. So we play with an extra player that always allows us to play as we like. And when he has the ball, everyone's in play. And when you watch a game like this and it's a little bit congested and it's a mental battle, and every inch of the ground is being contested, it's quite physical. They like to kick us, we're kicking them back. We picked a physical team. We got fullbacks that got muscles. We're ready for you. Go on, bring it our way. We're going to fight in the middle of the pitch. We got Zubimendi floating, Declan Rice smashing, and good game. Kai Havertz trots on, languid style. And suddenly, the spaces that weren't there a little previously suddenly appear. And he arrives at the ball and he just stroking around the play, just floating around, just knocking it off here, getting it back here, knocking it off. Hold on, mate, this space wasn't there before. I've got a high up seat. I'm looking for it and I can't see it. How are you finding it? And that's how I feel when I watch him now. It's almost like he's spent a year off nearly, or just studying football. And he goes, I've got it now. I've got it. Here's my first class degree. I'm going to come on the pitch now and show you just how intelligent I am, because I worked out the rhythm to the game. And it feels like he's an encyclopedia walking around that pitch, really. And so we can all see now his impact. And if I'd said that a year ago, the comments would have been full of, Havertz, he's rubbish because he can't score, blah, blah, blah. We've got to get rid of him. We paid too much. His wages are too much, blah, blah, blah. I say it now. There will be nothing in the comments, he says, knowing there's going to be somebody.
You're asking for something, Clive, yeah.
But because sometimes you learn about someone when they're not there. And they come back and you go, okay, now I see. Now I really see it. And so, yeah, I just think he's super important. But what as? And this is it, because before, even 2 months ago, I said he would have been the first centre forward. Him and Gyökeres would have shared the game, depending on what game you want to play, what game plan it was. Jesus, I didn't think was going to be part of this group, but I'm glad he is. And now I'm thinking, what is Havertz going to be? For me, he's just going to be that guy we put on. Whether he's up front, whether he's one behind, I don't think it changes his game much. It maybe changes our setup. And all of us want to see him on the pitch when it really, really counts in those big games. Potentially, we're going to have to play Man City 4 times coming up. And I can't... Just thinking about that for a second, it's not just the potential 4 games. We definitely have to play them twice. But it's almost the impact of those games emotionally, and also the game afterwards. What you do when you play those games, because they take more out of you. So people that understand the game, the tactical changes of the game, that can deliver in the biggest games, like Kai Havertz, and also make us all feel more comfortable. Because if you look at the Leeds game again, when he started, which we all agree that was the right front 2 to start, and the way we played the game, the physical game, if you look at his touches and what he actually did, it wasn't that much. But we'd have argued with anybody that said he played rubbish. Do you see what I mean? Because we felt his impact on the pitch. And I think that impact across the team, how we look, where we can go, how we can control momentums of the game, that's an intangible that we really feel as Arsenal watchers, and because we know when that's not there. So we know how important he is. Every time he plays, just get a little chair, lift him into the dressing room, then lift him into his car, and make sure there's someone there, lift him into his house. I don't want to do another unnecessary step that doesn't involve playing for Arsenal or being on the grass when it really, really matters, because I think he's key to all of our joy, shall we say.
Tim, a quick word on Kai and how he took that goal. What were you thinking when he was running through there? Were you confident or thinking, square it, Martinelli's right there?
No,
there's no chance.
No. I mean, I think when the game slows down and when the moment slows down, some people, when they finish, they need it to be instinctive. If they have too much time to think, I kind of think Havertz is the opposite, to be honest, in terms of being a finisher. I think the more time he has to think, the better. And to your point, Phil, it did give us a bit of a denouement, a bit of a kind of icebreaker moment, I guess, in a pretty tense game. But obviously the fact that it's Havertz against Chelsea, that really adds to it as well. I think I struggle to think who they would have been more annoyed by scoring between him and Madueke, but I reckon it might be Havertz.
Oh, they really hate him. Yeah, and he hates them back, which is even better.
But exactly. And and look, there is potentially I don't even think potentially. I think there is like a philosophical argument behind this. Why do players leave Chelsea and not really like them? Because I don't think Chelsea I think particularly now, I think they always kind of have treated players as like quite expendable kind of assets.
Assets, yeah, that's the word.
I think now under like Clearlake, that is even more like all these stories about like the physio going on the bench with Maresca and stuff like that. That is, you are dealing with a piece of equipment. You are dealing with an expensive piece of equipment, an asset that we want to make money from. That's the whole thinking behind their club, right? Their hedge funds, right? It's risk management. That's their assets. And so Chelsea, I mean, all these players they're buying, who's going to have or cultivate like a close relationship with the fans or like be like, a proper Chelsea man? And who are they going to parade around the pitch in 25 years at half time when they get, a legend on the sideline? Like, I don't think any of these guys will come back, maybe one or two, but they'll all be sold in a couple of years and whatnot. And so players do leave Chelsea and they will do things like round the goalkeeper and point to the Arsenal badge and whatnot, because Chelsea, they don't really treat their footballers as people. I don't think all that stuff about the bomb squad and putting them in separate gyms and all of that. And listen, cards on the table, I actually really respect what Raheem Sterling has done, which is just like, do you know what? I've won everything anyway. I'm not getting back in the England team. Pay me
Give me my money.
$300K a week to go to the gym. Fair enough. Yeah. Like every day, I will do that. Like
go and teach like young kids how to play football.
Exactly. Like I've got respect for that, and I think it said something. Obviously, I'm going to say this with my bias as an Arsenal fan. I think that moment said something about the two clubs, to be honest, and how like a player like Kai Havertz found a home tactically under this coach first and foremost. Nothing happens without that. But like that, these players come to Arsenal, and I think they look at it and think, okay, like. We're actually like people here.
I mean, they do have one legend, but he was too busy being a content creator, filming the last 60 seconds of the game. So how, like, you couldn't have pulled that clip out of my phone if you paid me £10 million. So the fact that he uploaded that voluntarily just shows what kind of people that club produce. I mean, 1-0 on the night, 4-2 on aggregate. I don't think we were in any real danger of losing or going out. I think we were by far the better team. The game should have been done, or the tie should have been done in Stamford Bridge or at Stamford Bridge. We left goals on the pitch that day, but we did finish it off, a very professional performance. And just a quick word from both of you, because it will be Man City in the final after they beat Newcastle 3-1 last night. I mean, I don't know if you watched the game, but Newcastle left about 3 goals on the pitch, but they were a total shambles defensively, which usually gets you killed at the Etihad. Although when you're missing Joelinton, Bruno Guimaraes in midfield, and your left side consists of Kieran Trippier as the left wing back and Dan Burn as the left-sided centre back, it already feels like a long night before the game's even kicked off. So Pep has already come out with the excuses. They have to travel 2 hours down to London, Tim. I mean, like it's a trip to the south of New Zealand. But they're also upset because Mark Gahey can't play, even though the rules are very clear. And also the referees don't want them to win, guys. So you really fear for them leading up to this. And I never expected the underdog gimmick from them or him. But here we are. I mean, just Tim, quick thoughts on City. Are you relishing that one? Are you would you have preferred Newcastle? I definitely
Yeah.
wouldn't, because they're going to kick the shit out of anybody.
Yeah. I think on balance, I would have preferred Newcastle just because Man City are a better team.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it is that simple. I do think there is potentially like a psychological risk in terms of the title race as well. If it's close when that game happens and City win, you can imagine what they would say, and rightly so, like in their position. I think you're right, again, talking about that Kai Havertz moment and the kind of things I glean from it. I look at like Arsenal City, and don't get me wrong, a lot of this is because City have been so successful for quite a long time now, and obviously like it washes over you as a fan. That's just completely natural. So I'm not looking to dig out like City fans here, but I did look at it and I was just like, there's so many empty seats. The atmosphere's so flat. I appreciate the game was over, and obviously that takes a toll. And Arsenal-Chelsea is a closer game between two rivals. I completely understand all of that. And I completely understand that we're going to be more happy because we've not been as successful as them over the last 10 years. I completely understand all those contexts, but I look at the whole thing as a package, and I was just like, the tickets were 20 quid. City have done a lot of bad stuff around ticketing with their fans and all of that, but these were 20 quid, and it's just like, oh yeah, okay, semi-final win, okay, woohoo.
It's half empty, their stadium.
There's like no atmosphere there at all. And then the first two things the manager talks about is whinges about how long it's going to take to get there, and then whinges about a rule that's been in place for decades anyway, which was relaxed this season anyway. And it's just like it's just like bad vibes, It's just like, not only I can understand that this is not, this is a team that won the treble 3 years ago. Of course, they're not going to be cock-a-hoop about getting to the Carabao Cup final. I understand all of that, but it's just like you actually seem to have tipped over into actively considering this like, a real chore to get into this final and play this game. I hope we use that. I hope Arteta says that. I hope Arteta kind of says to his players, I'm pretty certain Arsenal are going to get an expanded allocation now, which will be really good. So hopefully all of our season ticket holders get sorted. But if I were Arteta, I'd look at it and I'd go, we're going to have more fans than them. The first two things their manager did after they qualified for this final was whinge about things. Like, I don't know, it feels quite bad vibes. However, I'm not like, it's going to be a really tough final, going to be a really tough game. We didn't beat them earlier in the season. It's a 50-50. It really could go either way. They're still a really, really good team. But it feels like, and it also feels like if City win, the conversation will still be about Arsenal and what that does to and means for Arsenal, which again, I think is quite natural. But do you know what I mean? Like, obviously I have tremendous bias here, but it feels like Arsenal should win this cup. If I was from Carabao, I would want Arsenal celebrating on the pitch at the full time at Wembley, rather than Guardiola probably whinging about how long it's going to take to get home and how the referee doesn't like him and celebrating in front of a half empty end. If I'm from Carabao or the Football League, I want Arsenal winning this to really give this occasion something.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of where we are and where they are, we're the ones that need to get over the line, right? We're the ones that need to prove people wrong. And I think that will be a big part of the narrative on the day, Clive. It will be a big part of the psychological battle. So where do you see it at the moment? Obviously, it's still, 6 weeks away, 7 weeks away. So there's still a while to go. We're going to have players injured. They'll have players injured. We're going to have players back, and they'll have players back. So how are you feeling going into that game? Just projecting, obviously. Got your Oyster card sorted, rented the parking place. Where are you mentally?
I'll be there, that's for sure. And it's going to be hopefully a good day. I just come round to the feeling at some point this season, when we played Liverpool first game of the season, or close to the start of the season, we didn't play each other. There's a lot of fear and there's a lot of risk management in the Premier League at the moment. So to a draw at Anfield, no one cares, but they get the goal and we get slammed for not having the handbrake on. When we play City, they disappeared into their own box after scoring a goal, which was well crafted, and that only they can score with that player. And we get slammed for not taking them out. So I've always felt even when we lost to Liverpool in that Anfield game, I was talking to Andrew and I said to him, we're going to go back to Liverpool in the European Cup. When the draws now come out, it looks like they're on the other side. So that team could be City. And I felt at some point this year, if you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. And so I was desperate to have City in this final because I think when we play a cup game, we have to play each other. And then it's your best versus our best. What you got. And there's none of these tactical things looking at the season as a whole. Your best versus our best. And I think we're ready for this now. So the last time I went to Wembley to watch Arsenal, I think, was the Community Shield. And everyone laughed at us because we celebrated that one. We can't do anything right, can we? But it was we scored last minute goal, one on penalties, and it felt really big because we got one on them. It might have been the first time we sort of beaten them, in a long time. Then we beat them in the 1-0 home game, and also we've done them 5-1 since. But it meant something to beat them, and I think it's important because in this country, let's be honest, in this country, people are not comfortable with Arsenal being the benchmark. They're just not. They don't like this manager. They don't like the cut of his jib. He jumps about on the technical area too much. He's too excitable. Surely his players must be tense. He's too intelligent. He does too much leadership stuff. We don't understand that. We just call him David Brent. We just put him in that little bucket because that makes us all feel comfortable. He brought out the music at Anfield. He brought this out in training. Hold on. Why don't you listen to players? Listen to coaches. Listen to the professionals inside of the game. They are not comfortable with him setting the benchmark. We're far more comfortable with Happy Klopp, with his Gegenpress, one style of football, happy smiley face, very humorous. We like him. Pep, we got to accept Pep. We didn't accept him originally, but now he's won everything. We have to accept him and call him the best coach in the world. He can set the benchmark, positional play, all the rest of it. We're happy with that until other people try to do it, and then we criticise them for not having the same quality of players. Also, we've always followed Manchester United in this country, but we've never really followed Arsenal. Even when they were the Invincibles, it's all about how can we unseat them. Well, this club and this manager may be setting the benchmark, and I think that's where the dislike comes from. That's where all of the feedback and commentaries and the things that get us all angry are all about setting us up for failure. And so if we don't win, then we'll have to all put our phones down for 3 months. Right? So this is why I wanted City. Because if we beat them, they're going to have to be quiet. And I think it's time to beat them, and it's time to really embrace this challenge. I want it. I think we can. Obviously, I think we can. But we should want this game to really prove ourselves and continue to prove ourselves this season. Rebuild again in the summer, and then do it next season, which we've never done in our recent history. Back to back, and Tim will tell you the last time we did. Back to back, 1930 something, Tim. Maybe. So yeah, I think we need to have that sort of mentality, and this is why I want to see change. So I want City. Let's go out there and beat them.
I can definitely subscribe to that logic, especially because when I feel like we have had these opportunities in the recent past, we've never been at our best or at our healthiest. It always feels like we're playing the game with a hand behind our back. But I feel like if we play them this year, especially with City, not with the Kevin De Bruynes, not with the Kyle Walkers, not with the Gundogan's, all these people who have been there and done it, I feel like we have a chance to really, ruffle their hair and big bro them a little bit. And you're absolutely right. To be the best, to be the benchmark, you need to beat the benchmark. And regardless of where they are at the moment, City have been the benchmark. It feels like to me, Pep is laying the groundwork for a summer departure. He's kind of getting everything off his chest now so he can leave in a blaze of glory. Having said that, I will be a nervous wreck until the final whistle goes, regardless of what the result is. But yeah, I think it's something really exciting to look forward to as a club, as a fan base, because I really believe, and I know people have mixed feelings on the Carabao Cup, but I really believe that this could be a springboard for this group to take them on to greater things, because every team has done it. Liverpool under Klopp did it. City did it under Pep as well. Winning is good. Regardless of what competition it is, to get that taste in your mouths, to go for it again, I think it can only help us. So, yeah, really exciting. We've got another date at Wembley to look forward to. Let's take a quick break here because it's time to tell you about some brands. So here's Elliot, and we'll see you in a second. more than anything, this felt like another day for the collective, but I do want to highlight some individual performances, and I'll start with Piero Hincapie, who, in my mind, had his best game in an Arsenal shirt. I think it's been a steady, if not spectacular, start for him at the club, getting injured straight away, then needing to play at centre-back with Saliba, Gabriel and Calafiori all out. But it's clear that Mikel rates him, and more importantly, rates him ahead of Myles in the pecking order. I mean, whether or not you think he's above Calafiori is another thing. I don't think so. But Timber had the job of marking Esteval in the first game, right? But this time Hincapie was dealing with Delap. Again, I don't really understand that decision, but that's what they opted to do. Then Esteval came on in the second half, but he was basically untroubled and held things down really well. He won more tackles than any other player on the pitch with 5. He won more duels than any other player on the pitch with 8. And I think we really saw his value in a more defensive game state. I mean, people have a couple of issues with him on the ball, but I think in terms of a defensive presence and a pure defender on the pitch, this felt like Hincapie in his natural habitat without going full David Attenborough. So Clive, you spoke about having your eye on Hincapie after the Leeds game and maybe wanting a bit more from him going forward. But this felt like his day. This felt like his game state, his occasion. Tell me a bit about his performance and whether you felt like this was him announcing himself to the group.
Yeah, in the ground, he stood out quite clearly. I think because we could see that the lap was on him. I didn't really understand why the lap was so wide, if I'm honest with you, when I was in the ground. But I could see they were diagonally out to him. I thought, okay, I've got it now. So he's your exit plan. So let's just deal with that. So he had to deal with that, which he did. I often say, I said previously that I think he's more of a left back. And my reasons for that is just the way he approaches the man in possession. And so when a fullback goes in, they go in, and they bend their legs, they bend their back, and they jockey and they hold that way. They get down quite low. And that is the sort of defensive style of a fullback. When centre-backs go in, they're a bit more upright. They're a bit more stand-up-ish. They're normally a bit taller as well. And so I felt straight away he was a left back for me. That's how I would use him in the Premier League. I think in this game, I thought he was consistently coming narrow, but then getting out quickly enough. So they had to come backwards, come away from goal. He took the line away. He's good in the air. He transmits a ferocity in his defending, which I think the manager likes. He likes someone who looks like they enjoy it. I think on occasion, again, I was talking to Adrian yesterday, the way he approaches the ball to a tackle, I sometimes think, mate, slow down a little bit. This is England, one little tap and it's a penalty. So I worry about his deceleration as he goes in. But I think that's part of his defensive style. He goes in and he tears through. I just hope he does.
He's from Ecuador, Clive. That's what they do.
Is that what they do? So fair play to you too. But I just want to make sure he's looked at the penalty box line before he tears through. So you do what you like outside the box. So I like that style. I like the fact that on this day we had our two most defensive one-to-one sort of defenders, and they dealt with their areas, and that's really important to stability. I sort of fullbacks are like stabilizers for me. When one goes, it's a knock-on effect. Everyone has to come over and manage it. And I felt our two fullbacks allowed our centre-backs to be really, really straight and solid and manage their areas. So it's interesting Arteta did not make a substitution at the back. We got two attacking fullbacks that are sitting there, nice and fresh for the weekend, and we are the protagonists, shall we say? So it sort of makes sense.
Yeah, Tim, how would you evaluate his performance and in general his start to life at Arsenal? Because I think it ties into another question, because we saw David Raya struggle a little bit when he first came in. There was all that narrative about Ramsdale. He struggled to really belong, especially with that framing of the loan plus obligation stuff. Did he feel part of the group? Do you think there's maybe an element of that applying to Hincapie as well? I mean, it's very much some creative accounting to kind of bring him in. I think it's very clear that he will be an Arsenal player next summer. Do you think he just needed some time to feel part of the group or like part of the group, in addition to adapting to English football, new teammate, new language, stuff like that?
Yeah, first of all, when you said evaluate his performance, I thought you were going to say evaluate his portfolio. And I was, I was initially like...
I'm on the Chelsea board.
Yeah, exactly. I was a bit like, Aren't you supposed to have stopped the Liam Rossini impression at this point?
Well, people say I sound like him, so I hope this hasn't damaged me. Yeah.
We're deep into the fourth quarter, lads. We've got to lock in on the KPIs of Pierre Hincapie. No, so I think there's definitely an element of that. I'm more inclined to go on Clive's side in terms of this was a game that probably suited him a bit more. I think giving him Liam Delap probably helped as well. That's not... don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Hincapie is slow or anything, but like it's not exactly like a quick feet winger who's gonna show you a clean pair of heels. It's a physical challenge looking after Liam.
He's a bit
Delap.
nasty though. He will get his elbows out. He will jump with you, so it's not an easy physical battle. Yeah,
but I think that's all within Hincapie's wheelhouse. Like I think those are all, his build. I remember saying like the first time I watched Calafiori play for Arsenal in one of those Emirates Cup games, I swapped sides in the stadium, and I think he came on for the second half and he played left back, so he was like right below me. And I was like, he looks like he's wearing shoulder pads. Like he literally looks like he's come on in NFL gear, just like running up and down. And Hincapie's got that similar, like, should we say broad shoulders in terms of his build. And obviously, like, I can imagine that probably Gabriel Aintz's hand was in this transfer as well. It's like
quite similar players, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, Gabriel, we're looking at a South American left back who can play left centre back. And Gabriel Ainz was probably like, yeah, that sounds good to me, Chief. So there's a bit of that, and I think we can see that Hincapie's gifts are more defensive than offensive at the moment. He was much better in that respect as well in this game. Like he did kind of fly forward. I feel like I see him get forward. I don't see him fly forward, but I think there was perhaps an element to which some players are just motivated by certain things, and I feel like he's motivated by collisions, and I think Liam Delap gives you that. You get collisions, and that's when he flies. That's the stuff he likes. Whereas, trying to like nick a ball off of like a Gittins or even an Esteval or someone like that, I'm not saying you can't do that, but like I think he enjoys the physical side of defending, and that's what look, he's like, it's almost like a penguin being tossed a fish. He's just like, yep, fair enough. That's exactly what I want. Yep. So, but at the same time, I almost sound not disparaging, but like, actually, and Arsenal were in a bit more of a contain kind of game as well. So there wasn't the same onus on him to get forward and et cetera, et cetera. And I admit, when I say I've had trouble with the player, again, that's overstating it. I just don't see a big enough delta between him and Myles Lewis-Skelly to go and spend that money. But, like in terms of this game, this is not a Lewis-Skelly game at all. And we need to look after Calafiori. I think it's obvious that there is some physical management needed with Calafiori, and he's not going to be able to play every game. So I can kind of see it because he's got that kind of Calafiori vibe to him. But at the same time, I think all of the soft factor stuff you're saying, Phil, is absolutely right. This is, for me, his best performance for Arsenal. I think he's had a lot of solid ones as well. Obviously, what he has over Lewis-Skelly as well, as you can play him left centre-back, which you certainly can't with Myles Lewis-Skelly. So there's that element to it. But this did feel like a bit of like a moment in time, like a bit of a landmark performance for him. And what I'm really interested in now, how does he go and perform in the next game? Was it just that game suited him, or was it more the soft factor stuff you're talking about? And it's like, okay, I found myself in this team now. I'm feeling myself, and I can go and show like my true quality.
And just quickly before we move on, I think it's worth a final quick chat on Eze, because he started on Tuesday and sort of flitted through the game with some nice touches and bits of movement, but was otherwise quiet, although we can talk about the game state and how it wasn't really tailored to him and his quality. And I think the guys made a good point on the IR, and I agree with them that him playing the full game was a step in the right direction, because when Arteta was preparing Kai, Trossard was on the touchline, I thought for sure Eze would be coming off. It just seemed like a typical substitution. 70 minutes gone, you've done all right, but nothing amazing. And this is just an easy moment for me to take you off now. But we've got into why it wasn't an on-the-ball game, which you could see across both sets of forward lines, actually. This was an off-ball game, and I'm certain he can do more individually in terms of having an impact, getting on the ball more. But I'm really still wondering how we can get him into better positions, either off the left or alongside a centre forward where he can link with people and get shots away. Because I was watching a comp of Adam Wharton this morning, and my biggest takeaway, apart from his unbelievable passing range, was how dangerous Eza looked in almost every clip, because he was running into such good positions in the half spaces, on the edge of the box. He was even running in behind. Obviously, teams play differently against Palace than they do against Arsenal, but he seems to have lost some joy and spontaneity in his game. So, Clive, I'll ask you, what did you make of Eza's performance? And did you think him staying on was a positive sign that something maybe clicked for him or the manager in terms of his off-the-ball stuff?
Yeah, if I'd have been on the IR for conversation, I may have made him my stock rising. And there's a reason for that, because in the game, when I'm in the ground, I'm thinking, mate, come on now. I want that second goal. We're not really creating much. You're the one creative player that we've really picked with Mendy, maybe, shall we say. And so I need you to get on it, because if you just get on it and we score, I can relax and we're 2-0 and we go at Wembley. So that's that. You have to be honest about how you feel inside, how you walk into a game. Then the game transpires and we're being quite cautious. I think Gyökeres had barely any touches in the first half, so we weren't even getting to forward areas. So I walked away with that frustration. Then I have to flip my mind and say, well, actually, this is not his game. So what can he do now when it's not his game? Can he work defensively? And I watched him, Phil, and I watched him block lanes. I watched him run about, fruitless running, literally just doing it because you have to, because your team asked you to do it. And he did it continuously. And you're watching someone do something that you know they're doing because they want to be part of this team. They want to be part of the group, but it's almost not natural. But he's doing it anyway. And he kept doing it. And when the subs came out, I thought he was going to come off, and then he didn't. And then at the end of the game, when it's all won, he's all part of the joy, the rest of it. I did rewatch it afterwards, and I watched Arteta go up to him. And they had a big hug. And I thought, yeah, that confirms what I thought. You've now bought trust. If the next games when we're playing Man City in the Champions League quarter-final, and we're 1-0 up at the Etihad, and we have to make a change, can he come on and is he going to let us down? No, he's not. He can play now in all different phases. Defensive transitions, attacking transitions, settled attack, settled defence. He's now shown the manager those 4 phases of the game, I'm not going to let you down. I know, and he literally said in the press conference, it's not enough for magic moments. You've got to be able to play everything. And again, respect every aspect of the game in every zone of the pitch. That's what we are. So why are we making special rules for him because he can curl in the top corner? That's not how it works. You do all of that stuff, and I need you to do that stuff as well. And I think this is it. And I think this is a big game for him to build trust. And someone's probably saying in the comments now, well, Clive, let's see if he gets picked for the next game. It's not about that. I think it's about leaving that mark with the manager to say you now become an option in any game I want to play, in any part of the world, in any phase of the season. But you have to build your CV. I start Liam Racine now building his CV. You have to build your CV with the manager, and you have to build that trust. And I think he's done that.
I mean, Tim, Ødegaard feels like a short-term absentee, but could this be a chance, an opening for Eza to wrestle himself back into the team, especially at home, where we'll potentially need some quality and improvisation to break through a stern, tough defence?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking before that as well, the Merino injury, that's also an opportunity for him, isn't it? Because that's one more player that, in the manager's heart of hearts, he'd probably rather start in midfield than Eza. That's not going to be available to him potentially for the rest of the season. So that, at the very least, and I don't know, maybe Havertz's reintroduction maybe damages this a bit, but at least it makes him the next man up potentially. But particularly when it's Ødegaard that's not there, because obviously, he has a creative profile that we will miss. And like, absolutely, if I were him, I would be looking at that as an opportunity. I would absolutely be looking at it and going, okay, if this is going to happen for me, this is where it's going to happen. I'm kind of out of favour on the left wing. Martinelli and Trossard are playing reasonably well at the moment. Like, that opening probably isn't coming. This is the opening that's coming. This is the opportunity. We have a lot of home games as well. I think 5 of our last 8 are at home. And if you look at some of the oppositions, one of the biggest things, I mean, obviously, like, we get this anyway, but like low blocks, that is going to be the theme really of much of the last 3 months of the season. That's what we're going to be playing, because we've done, other than City, we've done what people would regard as the big away games. I guess the North London derby as well. That's big, not because the opposition are big. That's just big for kind of cultural reasons, shall we say. But yeah, like, absolutely, it has to be an opportunity for him. And Eze has faced challenges in his career. That's well documented. So, like, I'm confident that he has, like, the mental capacity and facility to do it. And I also think he's at a stage of his career where, like, he's not going to move again, is he? Like, he's 27, he'll be 28, like, in the summer. Like, if he decided that Arsenal hadn't worked, like, this is it. This is the big move, and there isn't going to be another one. So the challenge is, you have to make this work now. And I do think it's fair. We focused a lot of the conversation around Eze, around Arteta. Does he trust him? Can he take more risk, etc., etc.? But the onus is really on the player here. And at Palace, he didn't have that challenge. He was going to play every second of every game, no questions asked. That's not the challenge here anymore. And he has to adjust that. He has to show something in these games, because it's a big squad. And if you don't do it like that, then you probably won't get a chance for another few weeks.
So let's finish with a quick preview of the Sunderland game, because whisper it quietly, we don't just have an opportunity to go 9 points clear, we have an opportunity to stay 9 points clear, with Man City travelling to a resurgent Liverpool on Sunday afternoon. And this could be a huge weekend in terms of our pursuit for the Premier League title. I know Villa are still in the mix, but with their injuries and with European football and their general experience when it comes to title races, I'm quite happy to sort of look beyond them. But in terms of Sunderland, we know who they are. We know what they are, having played them earlier on this season. We should have won that game, but a late equaliser from Brian Brobby meant that we only came away with a point. I think generally it's been a really good season for them. And by all accounts, they recruited well in the summer. Their spine is really strong. And at this moment, they're one of only 7 teams who are still unbeaten at home in Europe's top 5 leagues. So that's fairly good going. However, there's an important caveat here, and that's their away form, which has been very different, with just 2 wins from 12 in the league and none in their last 7. So maybe there's some encouragement for Arsenal there. Some of their attacking metrics are relegation level bad, like shots per game, shots on target per game. Only Burnley have a lower non-penalty XG than Sunderland this season, which kind of highlights their dance with the margins, despite sitting up in 8th. So Clive, it looks like Saka and most likely Ødegaard will miss out this weekend, but we've still got a strong squad to choose from. Where do you think Arteta goes with his team? Is it another day for Havertz and Gyökeres up front, or will he be tempted by Eze again, do you think?
Well, the Ødegaard news maybe makes the Eze thing a bit more obvious, shall we say. I think I could see the fullbacks changing to the attacking duo. And just looking at the away form table, they are 17th in the away form table. So, and they've only scored 6 goals away from home. So we have to attack them and deal with them. And I do think there's been a catharsis moment after Manchester United. Losing that game was a requirement for me. If we'd have drew that game, I think we could have soft-soaped it. By losing it, I think provided a level of clarity that we can't continue like this. As a set of players, club, fans, we all got a little bit tense, and I think that's this Chelsea whole experience has changed that maybe. So let's validate that at the weekend. So I can see a couple of changes, and it felt like a bit of a tiring game. You could see gaps appearing on occasions. Maybe I'm being sensitive against Chelsea, and I'm just thinking that we needed to really. I just got feelings for freshening up, and the fullbacks and Norgard are in my mind really to come in and freshen up. Just can't roll out Zoubmen and Rice all the time. One of them's got to have half a game, the other one have the other half of the game.
Especially now that Marino's crocked.
Yeah, exactly. And Obviously, we had a conversation about Myles. What's going to happen there? Is he going to be used? I think the Wigan game is going to have a level of interest in it, shall we say, to see what we do, to see if we're going to experiment there. But we also, I think we've got Brentford on the Thursday night, and that's they're a good side, in a good vein of form. Well, I love that club, Brentford. I think they're excellent. I think people say that we're like Mourinho's Chelsea. I think we're more like Brentford in how we do things, how we operate, our model. I think we're much more like them, our data-centric methodologies. I think we're a lot more like them. So, yeah, but that's a big game, right? Away from home. I know our away form is excellent. But if we can do Sunderland, then do Brentford, this really starts to feel different, you know? Sunderland may come with a back five this occasion. They do that on occasion. So, Mukulele is a player I like, Phil. I always liked him when he was at RB Leipzig. I thought he's a player that could go to a really high level. I'm not sure why he dropped to Sunderland, but hey, look, he's in the Premier League being looked at. So let's see how long he stays there, right? So they got some decent players. Lefebvre is a decent player, but we should be taking this game. So if we're rested and fresh and we rotate appropriately with the two games in mind, Brentford and Sunderland, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, it's worth noting that they are missing Granit Xhaka in midfield, so he won't get his nice Emirates reception. But Habib Diarra is back from injury, and he's a player. He brings power and energy into midfield alongside Noah Sadiki. They've got Brobby up front, who is a handful, big physical presence. The league has found him out this year. Is no stranger to an elbow, a bit like Delap, gets his arse in the way of things. So they're going to be physical. They're going to be combative, attentive. And Tim, what kind of game are you expecting against Sunderland, and how do you think Arsenal will set up tactically? What are you looking for performance-wise on Saturday?
I think it'll be quite different to the away game in many ways, because obviously they don't have their crowd behind them and things like that. But obviously, there'll be a lot of elements of it that will be pretty similar. I imagine every free kick is going into our penalty area. And actually Sunderland, to be fair to them, probably the first and only team this season that set some kind of template against Arsenal that others have kind of looked to a little bit, like launching every single free kick into the penalty area from the goalkeeper.
Not putting two players up from a corner.
Yeah. So look, I think it's going to be low block, isn't it? Like, they're going to low block it and they're going to try and draw 0-0. Or maybe nick one on the break if they can. Like, I think that's reasonably obvious. And that is probably in every single home game what we're going to come up against. Like, who have we got at home in the top six now? Like, no one, is it? We haven't got any of, like, the big six teams at home. I think Newcastle might be, like, the nearest to it. Like, they're all going to be bottom half teams, and Sunderland aren't in the bottom half at the moment, are they?
They're eighth.
Yeah, I was going to say, I never look that far down the table, to be honest, nowadays.
We've got Chelsea still at home on the 1st of March.
Of course, yeah. I wonder why they slipped my
your
mind.
Mileage may vary on them.
I said big clubs.
Yes, yeah.
But that is largely going to be the challenge for the rest of the season. I expect it to be really difficult. I expect it maybe not to be a lot of fun again, but it's just going to be down to us to kind of break them down. And look, I definitely like the data. The data is undefeated. It will come and get you at some point. But I still respect what Sunderland have done this season. You were talking about some of the players they've bought. One of the reasons I think they might struggle next season is not just because the data gets you eventually. I wonder if a lot of teams are looking at some of those players they picked up and are thinking, they've picked up some quite good players, haven't they? Like, they've really got Bielsa Leeds vibes to me a little bit. Not in the way they play, but, coming up, being a top half team. And like Leeds picked up players like Rafinha, and and you're a bit like, yeah, okay, he looks quite good, doesn't he? Like, I wouldn't mind betting that they're going to be fending off some interest in some of those players in the summer, and fair play to them. I really like having Sunderland in the Premier League. They feel like they should be there to me, and I think it's going to be a really hard game, and actually a lot of it might not be a lot of fun. Sorry.
Yeah, they did a lot of good scouting in France and Belgium, obviously, because of their ownership. There are players out there, man. You just got to be a bit creative sometimes. But yeah, I agree. I think it might be a difficult, stodgy 20, 25 minutes, and then we'll just need a moment from somebody, a cross from somewhere, a shot from the edge of the box, and then hopefully from there, maybe even a set piece, which has been an often sort of a helpful crutch for the team this year. We've got Rice in the team. We know that Madueke can deliver a decent corner now. So can someone step up from a set piece? It's all about the first goal. The longer it goes on and it's goalless, the nerves kick in, players get a bit more desperate and frantic. But I think if we can get an early goal or an early-ish goal, that really opens up the game for us. And I think Sunderland, as well as they've done this year, have shown signs of tiredness, you know, especially because they lost a lot of players to AFCON. I know most of them are back now, but that's the key for me. Can we keep it on our terms for as long as possible?
Yeah.
Because as soon as it gets to half time, 60 minutes, 75 minutes, and it's goalless, that's an issue.
One of the reasons I thought they'd do well in the Premier League is their style seemed the most scalable. They were a counter-attacking team in the Championship. You look at how they won like the playoff final and all of that. I think their possession, like, I might have misremembered this, but I think they had one of the lowest possession rates of a promoted team in the Championship. And I looked at that and thought, yeah, they can just go and play pretty much exactly the same way in the Premier League. Whereas like Leeds, for example, they've had to change and kind of try and turn into Sunderland a bit. Whereas I think Sunderland could come up and be themselves. And obviously they did a lot of good work in the transfer market. And so they've been a counter-attacking team for quite a while. And I know they haven't done well away in the Premier League, but I also think when you go away to Arsenal at the moment and you're a counter-attacking team, you can lean the hell into that because you know that is the only way that you can play at the Emirates.
Yeah, I mean, they're 18th for possession this year. Only West Ham and Burnley are below them. So I think that's quite a clear idea of who they are as a team. I would just love us to move the ball firmly and quickly. I know the weather's going to be crap again. We don't know what the pitch is going to be like, but I would just love us to move them around a little bit because I think when Arsenal do get into that zone, I think a lot of their players based on control and their temperament and eventually breaking teams down. But I think we do have those moments of being able to move things around quickly. We get the overlaps going, the underlaps going with the fullbacks. So I would just love us to be on it from the first whistle because I think generally this season we've started slowly. So especially at home when we need to make a statement.
I think we're going to be on it a bit more. Let's think about Sun a little bit. So they've got Daniel Ballard in the middle of their defence and he can match us in the air for sure. And so he made the aerial game that we play sometimes. You know, we almost play like set piece playing open play. We come back, dink, cross into the box. We have to think about that. And so we speak about Eze earlier on. And I do think one thing we need to think about and improve on is our edge of area shooting. You know, and I think this is going to be the thing we need to do for the end of the season. The 1 year 14. The 1 year out of the three for me, I felt we should have won the league was the year when we'd lost by 2 points. But that was the year when Phil Foden hit about 8 shots from outside the area, it felt like. And Guardiola found his scoring touch. Remember? Ricochets and things like that. Mm-hmm. At that pressure point in the season, that taught me when teams fall away and just try to be the team that stops you, the space you get is at the edge of the area. That's where your Trossards, your Odegaards, and your Eze need to be really on it. That's where it's going to be. It's not going to be the centre forward. It's going to be there in that space. And so I felt quite strongly the team's going to come back to Eze, come back to how, just because the team requirements will change. You know, football has different phases. And so, yeah, he needs to be ready to accept these opportunities on that right foot or left foot. It doesn't really matter with him, whether he's balanced or not. It doesn't really matter, but his technique under pressure around the edge of the area is really, really good. So we need more of that.
Do you want a nice comparison there, Clive? 2001-2, it's Robert Perez's season, isn't it? Until he does his ACL. And then whose season does it become? Freddie Ljungberg's.
Yeah.
We change, it becomes Freddie Ljungberg's running at that point. And yeah, I think there's potentially something similar could happen there.
Yeah.
Over to you, boys. I mean, how did we score the goal to go 2-1 up at Sunderland? Trossard banged one in from the edge of the box. So
and where their defenders all dropped in their box, weren't they? Yeah, so this is it, mate. This is it.
Yeah. I mean, that feels like a good place to finish, and we definitely need to get something out because Elliot kept saying on the IR that there would be a pod yesterday, and if my Discord mentions are anything to go by, people wanted a pod yesterday. So apologies, it's a little bit late, but you've got something to keep you ticking over now until the weekend at least. As always, we'll have an instant reaction for you after the game on Saturday, which I'll be hosting as well. So if you're not already signed up to the Patreon, for just $5 a month, you can enjoy more Arsenal Vision content, like episodes of The Countdown. There'll be scouting videos. There are interviews coming as well. There's an excellent one on the Patreon at the moment with Steve Morrow, who scored in a League Cup final when Arsenal won. He also broke his arm celebrating. So that'll be a story you can learn more about when you listen to the interview if you sign up. So you definitely get a return on that investment. And of course, it helps support everything we do here. So otherwise, all that's left for me to do is thank the guys. Clive, always a pleasure chatting.
Thank you very much.
Tim, thanks very much.
My pleasure as always. Looking forward to seeing who our Steve Morrow is this year at Wembley. Maybe Christian Norgard.
We need him.
If he wants to leave in a blaze of glory before going back to Denmark, he's more than welcome to do it. I'll sign the cast. My name is Phil Costa, and thanks for putting up with me for this episode. We've only got 4 games left in February, which feels like a much needed change of pace after January, but things are ramping up, and without jinxing too much, it feels like some travel plans around late May and early June might be in order. So thanks as always for listening. We love you, and we will talk to you after Arsenal 10, Sunderland 0.